The Hammonds are in a very similar situation, sympathetic to the Bundys, but the ranchers and the farmers of the West are tired of these jackbooted thugs who work for the Bureau of Land Management. Where does it say that they get their own police department, their own paramilitary organization? The facts here were clear to the president. He didn't have to pardon the Bundys. All I think he would have. In the end, the judge threw out those charges, so a pardon became unnecessary. In this case, he has done the valiant and right thing by pardoning the Hammonds.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
The big news today, Alex, as you point out, I was headed to Las Vegas this weekend, where I was scheduled to speak to a rally on Sunday to free the Hammonds. The Hammonds are embattled Oregon ranchers who ran afoul of the Office of Land Management and were imprisoned for impossibly long sentences. They have now been pardoned by the president in a blockbuster move. So the rally that I was scheduled to speak to has been canceled, happily. This demonstrates that the president understands how to use the pardon not only to deliver justice for people who deserve it. Dwight Hammond is 79 years old. Stephen Hammond is 49. The evidence against them at trial was exceedingly weak. The judge, the Justice Department demanded a maximum 5-year sentence for them. Wasn't even clear that they were guilty of setting a fire that they were accused of setting. So the president also understands the symbolic nature of these pardons. For the West, for the rugged individual West, this is a very clear sign that the president will stand up to the federal machinery that's been grinding these ranchers and farmers, under their boot for many years.
I have been out West, and you talk about jackboot thugs. The way BLM behaves to just the general public, the way they glare at people at the trade stations, the way they act is very imperious, very arrogant, like an occupying army. And for folks that don't know, and let's come back and do a few more minutes on this, this is so critical. Some states like Nevada are 90% federal. There are several others that are 75, 80%, but most of those western states are more than half federal. And now they're always squeezing everybody off the land, working with the UN, working with the Nature Conservancy, working with these groups. And then they take people's farms and stuff, and years later, rich guys come and build a mansion on it. It is very Byzantine. It's very, I would almost call it dark age what's going on. And there is a war by the corrupt federal government against the West, and Trump has signaled an end to that. We'll be right back with Roger Stone straight ahead. Roger Stone was just getting into the optics, the iconography of President Trump this morning, announcing that he is pardoning 2 members of the Hammond family who had done some controlled burns before that are totally normal on your own land. There was another controlled burn. This goes on all over the country, and they couldn't even prove it was them. They tried to call it arson. Had a kangaroo group put him in jail, sparked a lot of outrage. I mean, you've got illegal aliens killing people every day, stabbing them and shooting them, and they don't even go to jail, or killing an FBI agent, a $280 fine. Meanwhile, a fire that hurts nobody, that burned some grass. You're going to go to jail for 5 years, and then it's almost sparked a huge uprising in the West. Recap what you were saying about how they've been squeezing the West, how under Obama and even Bush and Clinton, they've taken so much more land, how they treat people on their own land, how they try to block roads so you can get to your land. I mean, there's a rewilding going on under UNESCO and the treaty that George Herbert Walker Bush signed.
Well, and the most egregious example of this, of course, was the Bundy family of Nevada. The claim that the Bundys hadn't paid their rent, in essence, to the government is false. They attempted to pay their rent to the county because they believed the land belonged to the state, not the federal government. The government's misconduct in the Bundy case was so egregious, was so outrageous, that the judge threw the case out, and then it was announced last week that they will not be retried. I flew out there for a rally for freedom for the Bundys several months ago, and the energy was quite extraordinary. So the Hammonds are in a very similar situation, sympathetic to the Bundys, but the ranchers and the farmers of the West are tired of these jackbooted thugs who work for the Bureau of Land Management. Where does it say that they get their own police department, their own paramilitary organization? The facts here were clear to the president. He didn't have to pardon the Bundys. All I think he would have. In the end, the judge threw out those charges, so a pardon became unnecessary. In this case, he has done the valiant and right thing by pardoning the Hammonds.
And it just shows what heroes the Bundys and others have been. And David Knight was there in the middle of it with our crew. Just an amazing historic event. And then the persecution they went through, then the vindication by the judge. There's something new in the wind out there. People are sick of producers being harassed and targeted and treated like criminals, and then criminals being held up like they're gods. Roger Stone, we were talking, we only have a minute left before I go to this Paul Watson report, about the fact that the White House doesn't deny report Trump made secret deal with Kennedy over retirement replacement. Well, let's think progress. I mean, they just didn't respond to it. But you know, the whole point is if Kennedy's leaving and they end up putting his old law clerk in there, that would make sense. It's not illegal of how Trump makes deals to get things done.
Think Progress is the single least reliable fake news site anywhere on the internet. Anything they write is false. They cannot be taken seriously in any way. My point earlier was one of simple speculation. I don't know that that happened, but if it did, it would not be illegal. If the president told Justice Kennedy that he would consider his former clerk, Brett Kavanaugh, who everyone agrees is qualified, that would not be in the slightest bit inappropriate. But Chuck Schumer is now openly saying Kavanaugh was appointed to thwart the Mueller investigation. So there we have it. You see the Democratic line of the day.
Well, that's what I came out with this morning. That's one of the headlines is that the Democrats have announced their plan to block all judicial nominations, basically, of the president. If there's any chance that any of the cases against him could ever be heard by any judge he puts in, that's just an insane idea. It's the executive branch. That's what it does. It nominates for the judiciary, and then you have the legislative that then confirms. So they're trying to break the judicial, legislative, executive division of power. They are trying to basically block Trump's entire agenda with this new theory. Everybody should point out, well, it's pretty cockamamie because the last Supreme Court justice that Trump nominated got approved very, very quickly because he's highly respected by both sides. And they didn't even raise that point then. So it just shows that they are grasping at straws. But this is what they're going to use when Michael Moore surrounds the Capitol and when they get their rioters out on the streets. I think within just weeks, Roger, let's talk about that timeline, weeks or months before the midterms, certainly, we're going to see them make their move for destabilization, claiming, oh, he's about to put a judge in on his own criminal case. Stop him, and use legislative, judicial, executive ignorance in the Democratic constituencies, foolish little brains, to create this perception and really have them try to move against the president. But clearly, that's the drum that Booker and Schumer and all these people are pushing.
Alex, you're absolutely right. Look, I also think it exposes their game plan. For anybody who thinks that Mueller is not coming after Trump in a bid to remove him, is wrong. And they think this is going to end up in the Congress and in the courts, and therefore they're trying to get there first. The president has a legitimate right to make this appointment, and the Senate will confirm him. But they've exposed their longtime game plan. Despite the fact that Mr. Mueller's probe continues to be exposed as the partisan hit squad that it is, has not lessened in any way his intention to try to take out the duly elected president, Donald Trump.
Roger, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again very, very soon.
Tonight on The War Room, we expose the two British globalists who, working with George Soros, have gotten a stranglehold on America's digital electronic voting machines. Today at The War Room.
This is critical. So much of the information that ends up defeating the globalist originates on InfoWars. That's why the audience, yes, you are the vanguard. You're not just listening to be informed and to also help us be informed and sending us tips and intel. You are the folks that are reaching out to others so that we can report on the hardcore analysis. Then others pick it up later. We end up being proven right, and it ends up changing the world. So 3 o'clock Central today, The War Room. Roger, thank you.
Great to be here.
Speaking of Cory Booker, let's play a clip of that, and then I'll come back with the Watson piece. It is important, but this is just as important. This is Cory Booker, the senator, and then we're going to play a Schumer as well. It's just disgusting. Here it is.
I'm a little sort of stunned at the way this is all played out. If you look at the entire list of 20 or so people that he had on, the one person the president could find on that list that would be most assured to rule in his favor should many of the things you're describing come before the Supreme Court is this judge. He picked the one guy who has specifically written that a president, in fact, should not be the subject of a criminal investigation, which the president is right now. So this seems to be, of all the people, the most self-serving person he could choose in order to protect himself from this criminal investigation.
Booker thinks his constituents are idiots, which they are. Do you know how many judges and how many Supreme Court justices have said that you can't have a criminal investigation of the president originate out of the executive? That's why you could never get Bill Clinton. You could only have Congress then move with impeachment. Then once they're stripped, then you can do that. That's why nobody ever tried to charge Richard Nixon. He stepped down, then they didn't go ahead with the criminal charges. But you cannot indict a sitting president and then have the case go forward. Because then every two-bit county or city or anything could sit there and bring down a president all day long. Just like Travis County, the Democrats are constantly indicting Rick Perry and Tom DeLay and everybody. It's unbelievable. He thinks you're so stupid.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Gonna hit me? Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
The Real Red Pill Plus, ladies and gentlemen. Our team is constantly on the lookout for newer and better ways to improve our products. That's why we're bringing you a brand new version of one of the newest fan favorite products, the Real Red Pill Plus. The Real Red Pill Plus is an all-new version of the powerhouse Pregnenolone product. It features the same great formula that supports your heart, brain, healthy aging process with an all-new natural caffeine boost included. A powerful Pregnenolone base, the Real Red Pill, has quickly become one of our fellow InfoWarriors' favorite products. Now, with an extra proprietary energy blend inside, including green tea extract, yerba mate leaf extract, and more, you can get that extra pick-me-up, all supporting your mind and body in a healthy way. It's got all the great stuff that Real Red Pill has, but it's also got the boost in it. Get the Real Red Pill Plus at InfoWarsStore.com.